Let's quickly move on. It's one of the most popular shows on earth. Top Gear on BBC, ostensibly a show about cars, but often a show on just about everything else. And that's what's got a lot of people irritated after Top Gear came to India to shoot their Christmas special. Its host, Jeremy Clarkson, seemed to go overboard, painting India with cultural stereotypes that have offended some people, including, it seems, the government of India. The Indian embassy in London has written to the BBC that they broke the terms of the agreement according to which they were allowed to film. But do we really need to get all that irritated about a TV show? Is it that big a deal? Well, joining us now to discuss this, India's former ambassador Leela Ponnappa, with her, the ad guru Prahlad Kakkar. Leela Ponnappa, this is something that all Indian missions are very concerned about, the projection of India. And therefore, it appears in this particular case, the promises which were made by BBC, which is a credible broadcaster, were completely broken. What is your reading of this situation?
Vishnu, there is a very standard procedure. There's an SOP for any team that wishes to come to India and to film in India. And I think this is something that the BBC committed itself to. Having gone back, I understand that they did not adhere to the terms of the deal. And this is one of the reasons why the mission in London has quite rightly taken up the matter. But I think at a on a larger scale, we need to try to decide, as you rightly pointed out in your opening remarks, about how seriously we take this. Now, I haven't had a chance to see the entire show, but I have caught several clips on YouTube. And from what I can gather, there is a lot of undergrad level humor, some of it's scatological, and if anything, it rebounds badly on the Top Gear team itself. They project themselves as ambassadors of UK on some kind of a trade mission, but I think if this is the kind of envoy that Britain wishes to send out, they really should do a rethink any more than they would wish to send out football hooligans. Some of it is really very puerile and vulgar. For the rest of it, I think there's a fair rendition of road conditions in India and so on. I don't think we need to get overly exercised about it. For those of you who might remember in the 70s, Louis Malle had made a series of films on Calcutta, and that is really when India suddenly got very worried about how the so-called free and objective Western media was projecting India. Was it focusing on the stereotypes? In this particular case, I think they've picked up dated stereotypes, exaggerated them somewhat, and then tried to go on and push themselves in a kind of wacky kind of way, at least in their opinion. I think Top Gear itself has changed. Sure. It started out as a superb auto magazine show, but I think now it is everything else.
Prahlad? They came to Bombay and had lots of problems with dabbawalas. Do you think they were, do you feel offended?
Do you feel, not at all. I think the dabbawalas are something to be very proud of. I mean, by Harvard University, they've been given a 99.9%
Jeremy Clarkson's account of dabbawalas and competition with them didn't exactly show the dabbawalas necessarily in that great light, did it?
Yeah, but look at themselves. I think the dabbawalas, if they took over Britain, they'd run it properly. You know, much better than what they're being run right now, to be very honest. So, I mean, that kind of thing, you know, you can always argue and debate. But you see what happens is when a BBC, which is supposed to be a quasi-government corporation, which is independent of itself, takes a responsibility of a certain kind, we have no problems them poking fun and being snide, because that's a very British trait. But to turn around and become vicious, which they have become over the past many years about India, is irritating. You know, it's not, we don't have to go overboard. I don't think, I think we can afford to ignore them. But the fact is that they've been consistently snide.
But they do this all over the world. They aren't necessarily targeting India. This is a particular show. It's one of the most popular shows on earth, where the anchors travel all over the world. The cars have over a period of time become a prop, and they just sort of speak about whatever they want to do. It's about a bunch of guys looking to have fun, in a sense, and that's what the show is. But, so it's
but not at the cost of a country which you unfairly target. Now, India has been always the butt end of British humor. For some reason, I don't know why. I remember many, many years ago, they were doing an episode on the Taj. And the Taj is internationally a really well-known episode. And they were talking to a guy who looks after the chandeliers in the Taj. And all they were really stressing on was his bad English. And I was really amazed at the lack of sensitivity or taste in that particular thing. And then I started paying a little more attention to the whole side of British humor. It's always at the cost of somebody else. It's never humor for the sake of humor.
Leela, Punappa, last word to you. We are the largest democracy on earth. Do we really need to get that bothered for the Indian High Commission to be shooting off letters to the BBC? Keith Vaz has actually said, Labour Party MP in the UK, that the chairman of the BBC needs to come here with Jeremy Clarkson and apologize to all of us. We're the largest democracy in the world. Can't we just deal with a little bit of Clarkson every now and again?
Of course we can. I think the fact that they violated contractual obligations was rightly pointed out by the mission. We don't need to get exercised about it. We need to treat it with the contempt that it deserves. And I would just suggest that you reflect on what would happen if an NDTV team went to Britain and behaved the way these people did over here. I think to that extent, Prahlad Kakkar has very rightly pointed out that there are issues of sensitivity. It's not a diplomatic incident. We don't need to make a big deal about it. We must treat it with the contempt that it deserves. But at the same time, I think it's a good enough reason not to give them fresh visas the next time around, because I think this is precisely what would happen if an Indian TV team went to Britain in the guise of, say, studying multiculturalism, and then coming out with something on latent racism in Britain, perhaps based on earlier stereotypes. It would be unacceptable and objectionable.
All right, fair enough. Thank you both very much for joining us this evening. The Top Gear controversy, it seems it's much more of a controversy in the UK than it is over here. But thank you both very much for joining us with those views.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.